All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Eddie Live podcast, episode number 262. I'm here with Alan McIver.
Yeah, good
brother.
to see you again.
It's been so
Eddie.
long, man.
Yeah,
How you been?
Yeah, I'm really good. Really good. Can't complain at all.
Yeah, life is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, always busy, of course, but just getting on with stuff. I've been doing a lot of public speaking recently and doing some podcast interviews. Cheers.
I know.
Good to
Cheers.
see you
I don't want
again.
to cut you off, but yeah.
Yeah, it's been good working hard, trying to close deals, trying to make money as usual, you know.
That's what
rat
we're all
race.
trying to do, right? Yeah, the rat race. We try to get out of it, but it's not so easy.
No, it's not.
Man, it's been I think two or 3 years.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know. How long has it
been
been?
a couple of years, I think, since we last did this.
And you've been on a couple other podcasts, yeah?
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
is
I
awesome.
don't have my own, so
Okay.
I basically I'll sleep with anyone who has a podcast.
Perfect, perfect.
In their DMs.
There you go, yeah.
hitting them up.
It's funny because I think the more you do the podcast, the more people will start to hit you up. I think you do it for long enough, and then people are like,
Totally.
"Hey, this is great," you know.
And I was apologizing to you for hitting you up again. You were like, "No, it was great when people come to me because it kind of keeps the ball rolling, right?"
It's actually good because for me, I do it once a week, every week,
yeah.
and it's been like
Yeah.
262 weeks in
Yeah.
a row. And it is nice when people contact you because you're like, "Oh man, that's great," because I guess I just
It fill this gap right here.
the
yeah.
gaps, and then sometimes you just, it takes time to go out and find people.
Yeah.
And then when somebody calls you or hits you up, you're like, yes, okay, let's do a quick
That's
one. That'd be
great. Yeah. Sweet.
Brother. So since last we chatted, tell me about that. What's going on since we chatted? A lot of changes.
Yeah, I've got some more jobs. I started writing officially for Crossing and Commonwealth magazine, so I was always writing content for myself.
Yep.
And I was publishing on LinkedIn and sharing it on Facebook, and I was getting some hits on it. It was relatively successful.
Okay.
And then I decided it would be a good idea if I pay a translator to turn everything into Mandarin.
Yeah.
So I was paying 8,000 to 12,000 NT to a translator to turn everything into Mandarin, and that changed everything because once I had the Mandarin articles, the reach was so much bigger, and the feedback, I could hit two completely different groups.
Yeah.
And the managing editor of Crossing magazine got in touch with me and said, "Look, if you send us anything that you write, you can do whenever you want. We'll pay you. We'll translate everything." So all of a sudden,
Wow.
yeah, I know.
Because the translation is like the hardest part almost.
I know.
Right?
And so,
I mean, not the hardest part, but it's the part where you're like, you have to outsource that.
yeah, but also and I had to pay for it myself.
Yeah.
And also they've 10x'd my reach. So if I was getting 1,000 hits on an article, I'm getting up to 10 to 100,000 hits on my Crossing
Beautiful.
article. It's been so good for business, and because of the articles, as a headhunter, more people will meet with me, right? So I feel like I'm going into client meetings and candidate meetings, and the people I'm meeting have more context about who I am, and it's also a bit of a respect thing. I feel like when I started as a headhunter, I'd go into a meeting and I'd have to prove to this new person that, oh, I'm smart and I know what I'm doing and I can help you find a job. And these days, I don't feel like I have to prove anything because a lot of people will have read an article or two and they'll come into the meeting excited to meet me. And it's so different from the junior level chase that I used to have to go through.
It sounds like it's building the personal brand.
It is 100% that. It's purposefully building a personal brand. I mean, I taught my first university class 4 years ago at National Taiwan University, and now I've taught at 14 different universities.
Wonderful.
So it's one of these things where one door opens, which opens the next door, which opens 3 new doors, which opens 7 new doors, and it compounds,
Yeah.
The more articles you write, the more podcasts you do, the more public speaking you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's purposefully building a personal brand. And to be honest, it might seem a little bit cynical, but I actually really enjoy it. I like the public speaking. I like the podcasts. I like the article writing. I'm a bit of a natural attention seeker.
Okay.
to be
Okay.
honest.
No, I can. Yeah, for sure.
And so the kind of the singer-songwriter, the podcast, the public speaking, it really, it gives me energy, right?
Okay.
It fulfills a need of mine for sure.
Okay. And I think that, the public speaking, the branding, all that stuff. I believe the $1 million question is, why do you not have your own podcast?
I know.
Podcasts are
know.
awesome, but if anybody should have one, I mean, you
I
should
know,
be, you're on
absolutely
that
right.
list.
The honest truth is I'm quite useless with computers.
Okay. Okay.
So I've been watching you set up and the,
Okay.
the monitors and and I find that quite impressive. I'm actually I'm pretty bad with technology.
Well, for me, I mean, I also was. I'm just, we do the restaurant, right? I've been doing the restaurant for a long time,
Yeah.
and we did the podcast because, again, get to meet really cool people. Now
Yeah.
it's been like, I don't know how good your math is. Mine is awful, but 262 weeks. It's like between 4 and 5 years,
Wow.
somewhere in there. Through COVID, through like a vacation back to Canada, through everywhere, because I'm a bit of a momentum guy.
I totally know what you
If
mean.
I stop, it'll be like, oh, I can skip this week, and then it's gonna be like, oh well, I skipped last week, and nobody really noticed, and then you're skipping months.
I think psychologically that's actually quite good for you. It's the same kind of thing when you go to
Deadlines.
exercise.
Yeah. Yes.
Deadlines and going to the gym and learning Chinese. I mean, if you ask my Chinese teacher what my main strength is, she wouldn't say my language ability. She would say my consistency.
Okay.
Because I never cancel classes. I have class every Friday morning and I almost never cancel. So the consistency is what keeps it moving forward, just like you're doing with the podcast.
I agree. I with the restaurant, we've been doing it for a while. The podcast has been a while, and for me, like sometimes even with, like you were saying, with exercise, I will skip a day, and then it becomes another day.
Yeah.
And then it's like Thursday, and you're like, well, I'll start on Monday.
Yeah.
And then for me, like that's how I am. So I'll be like, okay, Monday will come around. I'm like, all right, let's go. And then it's crazy. So
Totally like that.
I've been all right with the exercise, but yeah, definitely I need to apply the consistency there, man. So tell me about the Crossroads Crossing magazine, and Topics magazine. Tell me about the writing.
Topics. So
tell me
I
about
write
those.
articles about Taiwanese business culture. So, for example, I'll usually do number format articles.
Okay.
So I'll do 15 things that can help a foreigner be successful working in Taiwan, or I can be like 7 major things Taiwan needs to avoid when talking about the talent market, or 10 of the big problems facing Taiwan at the moment in terms of resources.
Those are huge YouTube topics. If you would put them on a headline, you would nail it with that.
And they do really well. I think for me, the reason a lot of my articles do well is because I've managed to nail the insider-outsider thing, which is basically I've been here for 15 years and I know the Taiwanese business culture really well, to the point where I'm pretty sure people read the article and think, wow, he really understands Taiwan.
Yeah.
But I'm still the outsider. So I get the benefit of the insider-outsider thing, where I'm viewing Taiwan from the outside, but I'm also an insider. And I think that the articles are really well received because of that factor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get a lot of negative pushback, or you just don't know Taiwan, or I don't get a lot of that type of feedback, which is quite nice.
That's cool. That feedback. It's funny. I was saying I started clipping things up and stuff like that, and that's going well. I recently outsourced my clips to a company that I was working with. Their software, it was really good, and then they approached me with a package to be like, they will do it for me. I just kind of go in and I heart what I like, and I'm like, this one, and then they do it, and then they have a translation sort of part where it does the Chinese, and it's, I'd say 80% accurate, which is not bad.
That's
and
great.
then I have a person here on this side who I kind of trained up on that software, and she just goes in. We give her the link. She goes in and she fixes the Chinese.
Nice.
And then the Chinese is 100% and the English is 100%. And when you do that, like you were saying, it just kind of goes, it's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you're putting a lot of effort into your craft, and that is, people respect that. They see that happening. So if you've been doing podcast interviews every week for 4 or 5 years, people can feel the level of professionalism there, and that you feel the level of technical difficulty that it takes to set it up, and people respect that. I think the organic growth that you get once you've been doing it for a long time starts to get exponential, because I think it's quite difficult at the start, and then all of a sudden everyone has heard of the podcast.
It is actually like just mentioning that. Yeah, at the start, sometimes when I was gonna start like 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it is, I remember talking to a few people and talking to kind of like some well-off, kind of older gentlemen, and I remember one guy saying, "Well, let me ask you a question. Does the world really need another podcast? And this was 5 years ago. And I'm thinking, this motherfucker, right? I'm like, fuck you. And basically, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the IG, I'll fix that later. It's
that's
okay. Yeah,
okay, whatever.
that's okay. Yeah. And basically, yeah, I was just like, you know what? I guess we'll see because, in the beginning you start and you kind
Yeah.
of, you get people on the podcast and you don't really know how to prep and you don't
I
really have
know.
the equipment
I
and
know.
stuff. And slowly you get there
I
for
mean,
sure.
if you look at the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, it
100%.
started really small, and they were no one was listening. Or Chris
Yeah.
Williamson does a podcast called Modern Wisdom that I really like, and he went from 200,000 to 1.7 million within a year.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like slow, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, number 3 podcast in the world in
Yeah.
terms of self improvement, and
I love
it's
it.
massively to do with consistency. I think, like we were talking about earlier, but also sincerity.
Yeah.
Kind of, getting on different guests and being funny and expressing your
Yeah.
true opinions.
Yeah.
People can feel bullshit very easily, I think.
I think so. And I think that sometimes, like, I will get hit up, like you were saying, by people who want to do the podcast. And sometimes they're just like, I'd be like, well, maybe this is not really a good fit.
Right.
I've had a couple of, there's 260 plus. I've had a couple of duds in there for sure.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it's bound to happen, right? And you're just like, I remember interviewing somebody, having all my stuff ready and asking a question, and they would just kind of throw it back at me and be like, well, what do you think about me? What would you think? Or they'd be like, yes.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm like,
I'm a professional recruiter, right? So I
yeah.
spend a lot of my time
Yeah.
meeting people one-on-one.
It's great.
And I basically stopped meeting engineers because engineers will do what you just did, which is,
Okay.
they're not good with small talk often.
Sure.
They're quite disagreeable in terms of personality spectrum. So if you say something they disagree with, it will turn into an argument straight away. And eventually I'm like, I'm done with this. It's like, I'm only going to meet people who enjoy having conversations.
It's funny because communication is a skill that's not really taught,
No, it's no.
but it's probably the most important thing
I
to learn.
say this all the time. So
Yeah.
as a professional recruiter, people don't understand there's a massive difference between your hard skills, your CV,
Yeah.
and your soft skills, your interview.
Yeah.
So you get an interview based on your hard skills CV, but in the interview you get a job offer based on your soft skills.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to do both things well, you're not going to get job offers.
Yeah.
So you got to have the hard skills to get the interview, and then in the interview you have to be likable and charming and charismatic and funny and make good eye contact and
Yeah.
tell a good story and ask a good question and make the other person
Yeah.
feel valued and listened to and important. Like the soft skill part is massive in terms of career.
And I think that if you're going in for a job interview, it doesn't hurt to actually know even 1% about the company.
Oh, of course.
My gosh, because I've had
course.
even me, like, so we're a restaurant, but I've had people come in who they don't even know what kind of food we serve. Like, they have zero idea about anything.
So I'll give
It's
you
crazy.
I'll give you the opposite
Yeah.
of that. So before I came to meet you today,
Yeah.
I listened to the entirety of our other podcast so that I didn't
Okay.
repeat myself.
Sure. Okay.
So that is a level of preparation that you should be putting into interviews, because if
Yeah.
you want it to be well received, then don't repeat yourself, and then make sure you know what the stories you're going to tell. Make
Yeah.
sure you know the company you're interviewing with, who are you speaking with, what's their background.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just due diligence. It's very common sense, but a lot of people don't understand that, I think.
It's crazy because I remember a couple of years ago we had this a Belgian guy. He was coming in. He was importing this beer
Yeah.
from Belgium, and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna bring my partner in, right? And we can come
Sure.
in, we can have a chat." So like, okay, come in. And he comes in and he brings his partner in, and so we talk for about a minute. He kind of looks up and he sees the UFC gloves and
Yeah.
stuff, right? And he's just like, "Oh man, I love George St. Pierre, and I love and he
Yeah.
talks a little bit about UFC.
Okay.
And then that it unlocks something like, oh, really? And then we started talking for like an
Yeah.
hour about, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. Send me whatever, 3 cases of whatever.
That's
just
how
send it.
sales
Yeah.
works. I mean,
It's so hard to
it-
teach, but yeah.
it's like finding common ground. A lot of the advice I give to Taiwanese people is to do with, like, don't disassociate your personal life from your working
Yeah,
life. So if you
yeah.
have a hobby that you're really interested in, so I play a lot of music and I really like tennis and golf, and maybe in a job interview, or maybe I'm selling something into you and you also like golf and we come into that
Yeah.
topic, it's like, all of a sudden you've ingratiated yourself with that person in a way that you didn't before. It's like you found a common ground, you found a common topic. All of a sudden they like you much more than they did before. I mean, it
sounds like common sense for me.
like,
But
come on.
like, for example, I just hired a new guy in the kitchen, young Indonesian guy.
Yeah.
And we were chatting, and also quite a quiet guy. And we were chatting, and he looks fit. So I'm like, you exercise?
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah. And we started talking about the gym, and I'm like, well, what's your favorite? He's like, oh, bench press. And we chat. I'm like, you're in.
Yeah, you have something in common. Yeah.
Simple.
People don't understand how likability works or how you find common ground with somebody. And that's just not for that's for every little conversation.
Yeah.
But also the more friends that you can have in your life and the bigger the network you have and the more people who like you, the more people who, it sounds insincere to say that if you're asking people for favors, you're kind of using your relationships. But I mean, that is the real world. That's how the world works. If people ask me for favors, I'm always responsive.
Yeah.
I will always reply to messages and emails.
Yes.
Even, I mean, like, I don't want to be rude, but as a recruiter who's foreign, I get hit up all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't ignore anybody. I mean, you will struggle to find somebody that says, "Oh, Alan's a rude guy. I emailed him twice and he never replied." I will never be that person. Even if I can't help them, I'll give them a little bit of advice. And I think that if you go around being a nice guy and you help people out as much as you can, that comes back. That kind of karmic loop will definitely come. Yeah, it totally works like
100%. Yeah, 100%. And again, that connection that you get, it's funny because I think the guy who was importing the beer, he went out of business, but the other guy that came, he would come. He left Taiwan recently, but he would come and watch the fights every pay-per-view every Sunday. He was coming for years.
Right.
And then halfway through, this is a weird sort of addition to the story. About halfway through that, he's like, I got to tell you something because we're really close. And, I love coming here. And I believe that, we're close now. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And he said, the other guy who invited him, he said, you know what? You want to come and have a drink with me because my partner bailed. And I said I was bringing my partner. So you have to pretend to be the partner. And he's like, I've been wanting to tell you that for so long. And I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah, sure.
What do I mean, I don't really,
whatever.
Who cares, right?
Yeah.
I made a friend out of it, and it's cool. He'd been coming for years.
Yeah.
And we're still in touch. He moved back. We're still in touch.
I mean,
Crazy.
that's great. I think, especially as foreigners in Taiwan, it can be really helpful to know a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean that in an insincere way. I think the better your relationships are with the foreign community, the happier you are.
Yeah.
A lot of the most likable people I know, they know everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're friends with everyone, and they have I was speaking to my friend about this recently, and I was saying one of the happiest things of my life is that if I go to a party, let's say Tiger Mountain, I'll go to Tiger Mountain, and as soon as I walk in, I see people, and when they see me, I get met with big smiles, big smiles and big genuine hugs, and that makes me feel amazing. There is nothing more important to me in my life than, those relationships. And I go in and I have a whole bunch of positive responses to me arriving, and that's really, really special to me. It makes me so happy. Maybe that's not important to some people, but for me, who's very relationship driven, that is the be all and end all of my life. It makes me incredibly happy.
It's funny because for me, I agree 100%. And being sort of a natural introvert, right? It's also like, you don't want that attention. But then when you come, you're like, this guy. I have people that come in here and they'll say, hey, you know what? I called you, I messaged you, and you gave me this advice, and I opened my business.
That's
and I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Because anybody that messages me and asks me a question or asks me for an interview for their thesis or whatever, I'm just like, okay, if you can come here, I'll do it anytime.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot.
So many, I don't even remember.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for being a yes person.
Yeah.
And, being a yes person. Oh, do you want to do this thing? Yes. Do you want to come to this event? Yes. Can I see you Friday? Do you want to meet for coffee? Yes. I think my life has benefited a lot from being a yes guy. I get incredibly busy and a bit overwhelmed, but whatever. It's like,
I think that coming here, again, I was saying like I was super introverted, and the first couple months I was here, I told myself I'm not gonna get any better if I'm just kind of sitting in my room playing video games. So then I just became like a yes person and said, you know what, you want to go out? Yeah, because my first instinct as an introvert is like no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going. No, I don't
Yeah.
want to go. I don't want to meet
Yeah.
anybody. I
Yeah.
don't want to do anything. But like, I would always be like, yes. All right, let's go. You know what? Let's go. We go down, we go to the club, we'd go out, go
Yeah.
for dinner, we go to a Taiwanese wedding, we'd go wherever. And I'm
Or
like,
you
hey,
want to
this
go
is
play
good.
tennis? You
Let's
want to?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so too. And especially now, my kid is close to 4. I feel like my wife and I are starting to get our freedom back a little
Okay,
bit.
yeah.
We can tag team parent. We can have nights out. We can,
Yeah.
you know, I've started playing music again recently. I
Yes.
stopped playing music for 4 years basically, and recently I had a gig in Taichung. I had a gig at Margarita Social Club. It's so nice to be back playing.
It's cool because you actually you get your life back. I'd say yeah, about 4-ish. 4-ish is
I
good.
think that's right.
Yeah. And then it gets even better because all the stuff that you liked growing up, like let's say
Yeah.
the 80s movies or like any video games or sports or whatever that you liked growing up, you get to kind of relive that.
Yeah.
You know, doing with your kid. It's amazing.
Do you
It's
know,
been amazing.
last
Yeah.
weekend I bought another controller for my PS5 and
Beautiful.
FIFA.
Beautiful.
And I'm like, oh, he's close. He's
Yeah,
close to
it's-
being my FIFA buddy. It's like,
it's
let's
good.
start career mode, mate. You
It's
know?
good. It's
so
it's
good.
it's so cool because I have this little arcade sort of set up here, and for my daughter's graduation party, she just finished grade 6.
Nice.
We did the big party thing here, and I set that up with the projector, and I had like 4-player arcade Teenage Mutant Ninja
That's so
Turtles, and the kids were
cool.
just like, "Whoa, this is
That's so
amazing,
cool. I
right?"
love
And then
it.
we had them singing karaoke here, and we had them playing arcades there, and we had them switch over there and buffet. It was amazing.
That's
the
so
kids were
cool.
like, wow.
They must have loved it. Yeah.
And for my daughter, like we went through COVID and all that stuff, and she had to do homeschooling
Yeah.
for COVID, right? And because I have all this gear, I have a little bit of a setup at home as
Okay.
well. And she was just like, she's got the big screen and the little monitor, and she's got everything. She's got the headphones and the
Oh, my
mixer and all.
goodness.
So she was like, can we just like never go back to school and just do this forever?
Has
you
she started live streaming? Has she started?
She has. She's
Oh
been doing
my
live streaming for a
goodness.
little while. Because again, I have all this stuff. Like I wouldn't buy all this stuff for my kid to
Of
live
course,
stream,
of
but
course.
because I have it, yeah, she live streams like video games and stuff,
Yeah,
which is crazy. It's
I mean,
so fun, dude. Yeah.
You know, when I was maybe 10 or 11,
Mhm.
I noticed that my dad had a bunch of guitars on the wall, and he didn't really play at that time, but there was guitars everywhere. And all of a sudden, I'm picking it up and I'm playing around, and then I'm playing every day. And
love
then
it.
I join a band, and then
Love
I'm in the choir, and then all of a sudden, a massive part of my personal identity is music and playing music and singing. And that was all from just having a bit of gear
Yeah.
around the house.
It's
you know?
awesome, man. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. So yeah, we'll see the stream with your son very soon. The FIFA, the FIFA 2-player career mode. Yeah.
You.
So how does let's switch a little bit. How has the experience as a writer influenced sort of your perspective on sort of Taiwan's business, sort of economy, stuff like that, environment?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've always been a very opinionated person. So coming into Taiwan as a foreigner and working in recruitment has given me a really good perspective. The really nice part about recruitment, let me just say this first. So a lot of people might look at me and think, he thinks he's really important because he is a headhunter. And actually, that's not really true. What I
Okay.
am doing is a version of playing the cards that you're dealt with. So I was an English teacher, and then I became a headhunter, and all that I'm trying to do is do as good a job I can with the skill set I have. And the skill set I have is being quite good public speaker, being very opinionated, and I'm in headhunting. So what I'm doing is I'm leveraging my job to make my life easier or to make me more successful. So again, like the nice thing about headhunting is that you get to meet so many really interesting
Yeah.
people. So you're constantly having these conversations with general managers and, you know, director level salesy marketing people in these different industries, and you get to learn from their experience, and that accumulates into this kind of wealth of opinions and evidence from different resources. And so what I'm doing is trying to learn from all of those people and then regurgitate into a more simplified version that other people can enjoy. So I really like it, actually. I think it's really rewarding.
I think what you said, you kind of hit the nail right on the head, because a lot of people they view us foreigners,
Yeah.
you know, like, what are these guys doing? They're failures in their own country, so they have to come. I've heard like so many things,
Totally.
right? And I'm sure you've heard it as well. But we are also like same thing with me here. Like, you know, I coached soccer here for a
Yeah.
long time because that's what I did back home. I taught English because that's what,
Yeah.
you know,
That's what everyone
what we
does.
do. That's
Yeah.
what we do to get our foot in the door. I've done that. We did the restaurant. You know, people are like, why is it Mexican? Well, my family's Mexican. So we make Mexican food because
Yeah.
that's what I know.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
It is
you know,
playing the cards that you're dealt, and there's
Yeah.
there's something kind of nice about. I respect people who hustle and figure out their own stuff.
yeah.
You know, like you've managed to build this career in the podcast and the restaurant and the football coaching and the friend group
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like, okay, great. You know, like do what makes you happy or do
Yeah.
what you know. You know, maybe Mexican food is what you know. That's what you know. Maybe you really like UFC. Start talking about UFC.
Yeah,
You start,
yeah.
you know. I respect people who kind of find their own path. Like, don't stop complaining. Like, just work it out.
Please.
Just work it out. I mean, you know, maybe life can be hard every now and then. Figure out
course.
solutions to your own problems. Like, just get on with it, you know?
100%, man. Because for me too, like I said, doing the podcast, interviewing different kinds of people. I also have them in Mandarin sometimes when I want to really interview
Yeah.
someone in you know, a Taiwanese. And with this, I've been able to do the English commentary,
Yeah.
push English commentary for the MMA fights here. And just last weekend, there's a new sort of up and coming big boxing promotion here,
nice.
and they didn't have English, and now they're bringing international fighters in.
Yeah.
And then they came in and they're like, "There's only one person for that job," and you know,
I know, it's
it's just
perfect.
you. Yeah, I'm
I
like,
mean,
"Yes,
my
let's do
good
it."
my good friend Scotty is a Canadian guy, and he
Basketball
recently,
one,
he
right? Yeah.
recently got invited by T1, and I think he was asked to color commentate on one game, and he did so well that he was able to do another game, and then all of a sudden, this is his, you know, his Instagram is based on Dwight Howard and the interview with Dwight Howard,
Love it.
and he was so passionate about it and so good at it that all of a sudden he found himself in this weird career path that he's super happy with and that he's really good at and
Yeah.
is really happy about. It's like, great, you know?
I've seen a lot of his. He's on my Facebook as well. I've seen a lot of his posts.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I love to see that because you can just do more than being, you know, the English teacher. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I
Yeah.
have friends that teach English that make really good money. And then, you know, they invest all their, you know,
Yeah.
profits in stocks, and
Yeah.
they're killing it.
Oh,
And
for
They got
sure.
weekends off.
Yeah.
They're
you
great.
I mean, yeah,
Like,
nothing
there's-
wrong with that. But I
There's
do,
so many things you can do.
I do
Yeah.
respect people who hustle their own happiness. And
Yeah.
whether that's financially or whether that's career wise or whether that's, you know, you become a quite famous DJ, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I respect people who can kind of achieve things based on their own effort.
It's cool because eventually, like when you do something like this and you know, like what you're doing, it becomes fun, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like your career becomes based on something you like.
Oh,
Which
absolutely.
is huge because then you don't feel like you're working anymore.
I totally
I
agree.
love this.
I totally
love
agree.
doing
I
this.
mean, so
Yeah.
for the past 5 years, I've been a partner in a company called Paul Wright Group, which is my
Okay.
headhunting company,
Yeah.
and
Rita.
we don't have any
Rita.
we don't it's okay. We don't have any working hours or any targets or anything
Right.
like this, and so I my life is my own. No one tells me what to do ever. I work really hard for me.
Mhm.
And I have all these side hustles for me that I really enjoy. I like going and teaching at TIDA. I like writing the articles and public speaking. I've invested in a couple of businesses. I like helping them out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really satisfied with my own career. And I'm making quite a lot of money, to be fair. Not always, but I make quite a lot of money. So it's like the best of the best worlds.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy and I'm making money.
But it's also like you have to get there. Like you cannot
Oh,
just
for sure.
walk into being a headhunter who knows
No.
95% of the foreigners in town.
No.
It's not possible,
No.
right?
No,
and some people, they just want that. They expect, well, you're, and then
Oh,
you're
man.
lucky. You're lucky that
No,
you
no,
met
no,
all
no.
these people.
No, no.
People say that.
Absolutely
right?
right.
Yeah.
I was down at my friend's house in Taiwan recently, and his
Yeah.
wife said, "Oh, you're so lucky," and I was like,
No.
"Excuse me, this is hard work and effort that's earned its way here. Thank you so much."
No problem.
And yeah, I mean, if you speak to my wife about my emotions during my first few years of headhunting, she'd tell you it was really rocky because
Yeah.
there was a real chance of failure. There was no guaranteed success, and it was really stressful. And I was not handling that stress particularly well. So
Yeah.
I would come home and I'd be in a terrible mood and I'd be emotional.
Yeah.
And I had to make it through those early struggles to get where I am now, but I'm very thankful I'm
Nice,
where I
man.
am now. Yeah.
That's all. And I mean, with the business, sometimes you're on top of the world, and sometimes the whole thing takes a shit, and you're just like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I got to fix it.
Yeah.
Let me fix it.
There's-
And that's just life.
Totally right.
Yeah.
There's an entrepreneur that I'm very good friends with called Clayton Jacobs. He was the former the founder of Creator DB, which is a company that's doing really well in Taiwan.
Okay.
And we were doing a talk together at NTU, and we were asked a question, you know, talk to us about your failures. What's been your biggest failure,
Sure.
and what did you learn? And neither of us could answer because our careers are just filled with failures.
Yeah.
Fail all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I don't even know how to highlight one because I failed so many times.
It's so normal to just fail.
Yeah,
It's like a
and-
normal thing for you.
And
Yeah.
that's totally okay. That's totally okay. The
Yeah.
good thing about the amount of failures I've had is that they don't hit me as hard anymore. So I don't get as emotional as I did before, which I'm really happy about because it doesn't feel nice to be on this
Yeah.
emotional
No.
journey that is tied to my success in sales, you know?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah. And also, one of the craziest and the hardest things here is, you know, you come in and sometimes, you know, you're on cloud nine, and sometimes, you know, people
Totally.
called in sick and everything's just a mess.
Yeah.
But when someone comes in that door, they don't care. They
Yeah.
came in to have a beer
Yeah.
and have a chat. So kind of burying that and processing that on your own time
Yeah.
while you're still smiling, while you're still chatting with people.
Can I ask you a
that's tough.
question actually? Because
Sure.
I've always wondered about people, you know, foreign friends who
Shoot.
have a lot of friends in Tianmu and a lot
Yeah.
of regular customers.
Yeah.
How does your relationship with alcohol work? Because I've known a bar owner
More
who-
than one, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
who was fond of alcohol before they owned the bar, and owning the bar was a big mistake that eventually led to real alcoholism.
Okay.
Like, how do you navigate that? Oh, you know, see a friend have a beer type of relationship.
So I almost never drink here.
Okay.
Almost never,
Okay.
because so my family's Mexican, right? Like I was born in Canada,
Yeah.
obviously, but my parents are Mexican, and we have lots of alcoholism and lots of drug usage and lots
Yeah.
of jail time
Yeah.
in you know, in the history.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, we went to Mexico to visit, and we went to visit one of my cousins who was in jail, and this
Yeah.
was a Mexican prison. I
Oh,
was probably
God.
like 8 or 10, and it was like the scariest place I've ever been.
Right.
And it didn't scare me straight to be like, you know, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very strict with the alcohol. First, I'm cheap because I'd rather sell it
Okay.
than drink it all myself.
Which has probably saved you in a lot of ways.
Probably, yeah. And because I have had also a lot of friends that have bars.
And you kind of watch these
these guys.
slip into it.
Yeah,
right?
and you go in
Yeah.
there, and they just pour you a beer, and I'm like, oh no, I just came for a coffee and a hot dog or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put this beer right here, and if you don't drink it, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll drink it. So I'll have a
Yeah.
beer with them, and then they're pouring, and then everyone that comes in, they're pouring for everyone and
Yeah.
drink, and then at the end they get so drunk they don't want to charge anyone,
Oh
and I'm
my
like, hey,
God.
hey, man, my friend, you
I
cannot
know,
do
I
that.
know. I've been
You
in
cannot do
I've
that.
been in
Yeah.
bars in I'm just gonna say it. I've been
Yeah.
in bars in Taichung where the owner of the bar can't talk. So
Yeah.
he's kind of
That's
like
tough.
a mess on the
Yeah.
table, and everyone else is behind the bar pouring drinks, and you know you got the friends go in and be
Sure.
barmen, and it's just
Yeah.
such a mess.
And for me, growing up with that, and also I was a soccer coach most of my life in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like a bit of a, like, I was early 20s, so it's kind of a young role model for
Yeah.
some of the younger guys. So you go out for drinks on the weekend
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Aside from that, there was not really any smoking or drugs or anything.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And so I was kind of, I actually went in to be a police officer as well.
Oh,
I was going
wow.
to do that.
Okay.
I didn't pass the very final exam because I was too young.
Okay.
They said come back in 2 years with life experience, and then I moved to Taiwan instead,
Right.
which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've seen a lot of it, and I'm like, I don't want to get involved in that because I
No.
see it. I see people come in and
Slippery
they're just-
slope.
slippery slope, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you.
Yeah.
I'm Scottish, so I have a lot of alcoholism
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the family, and I have quite an addictive personality, and so I know myself. I couldn't have a bar because I'm not a one drink type of guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an 8 or nothing type of guy.
An all or nothing guy.
You
Okay.
know, so
Okay.
so for example,
I like that.
I will heavily restrict my drinking to 1 or 2 nights out a week,
Okay. Okay.
because I couldn't do, oh, Tuesday I'll have a quiet glass of wine with the wife.
Yeah.
That's not my personality.
Also, for me too, if I have 2 beer, maybe 3, I feel like I've hit this wall where it's like I'm still fine. Tomorrow I'll still be
Yeah.
100%. If I keep going, I'll be like an 80 or a 70.
Yeah.
And then when you get to like 4 or 5, it's like, well,
Well,
what the hell are we doing here? Let's
we're in
go.
now, you know. Yeah.
Let's go. We're going to Taipei.
Yeah.
What are we doing? You
Yeah.
know? So then I'm like, I'm leaving. It's yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I mean,
know
one
what
or
you mean.
two, I'm like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it with certain customers, but
Yeah.
it's pretty rare. They'll have like 4, 5, 6, and I'll kind of be nursing one. Maybe I'll do 2, but
Yeah.
that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But tell me about the NTU, man. The MBA student. Tell me about the NTU
Yeah.
experience. a little
So
bit. Yeah.
I wrote an article
Mhm.
5 years ago about the job market for foreigners in Taiwan, and the
Mhm.
article did really well. And then, because of the success of that article, a woman, Celia from NTU GMBA program, got in
Mhm.
touch and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming in and speaking to our foreign students about working in Taiwan?"
Okay.
And I said yes. And then I did that. And I was really nervous the first time. I think in my head, there was a massive jump between what I was doing in academia.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I started teaching, I was okay. And then I published some photos about, oh, I went in and spoke at NTU. And then NTNU professor saw that and got in touch and said, hey, would you come in to speak to
Beautiful.
our MBA students?
Beautiful.
And then all of a sudden, I'm being cold approached all the time by different universities, and
Love
some that I approach myself. If I ever connect with a university, I say, hey, I'm a guest speaker. And it just snowballs. So now I have a permanent role at NTU where I'm a GMBA lecturer. And then I speak as a guest speaker all the time. And if I get cold approached to do stuff, I almost always say yes, because it's just one-off
Yeah.
lectures or whatever.
I feel the same. So what kind of advice would you give somebody who, like you came in, you
Yeah.
saw the mix, you're like, hey, let's do a gig.
Yeah.
Like for you, that's supernatural.
Yeah.
For maybe, I don't know, let's say a university student who's maybe more quiet, more
Yeah.
shy. How would you get them to be more self-promoting? What kind of advice would you
Yeah,
give someone?
I mean,
Promote yourself. man.
So right before I came
Yep.
to meet you, I met a girl called Sally, and I was giving her advice about a job search, and she was giving me an indication like, oh, I'm not bothering them, am I? And I was saying, no, you're not bothering them. If you message a human resources person and you say, I'm looking for a job, they're not going to be upset or annoyed. That's
Trust me.
totally fine. Trust
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
So I always say the more active, the better. A passive way of applying for jobs is just looking on LinkedIn or 104 and then sending in your resume. And an active way is to contact people. You know, add people, message them, say that you're looking for a job. You're not bothering them. A lot of Taiwanese are very buhao-isa about
Yeah.
doing stuff like that. Don't be. Like if I had said to you, oh, I'd love to come and play guitar
Yeah.
here sometime, Eddie, and you said, oh, no problem, let's do it, and then we never followed up, that's okay. But in a month's time, I will probably message you and
Yeah.
be like, hey, remember we spoke about me playing a gig? How about sometime in October?
Okay.
So that's how you do it.
Let's choose a Friday in October.
That's
Let's
how
go.
you
Yeah,
do it.
Exactly.
You know, there's nothing wrong with following up. And also, there's nothing wrong with being rejected.
Yeah.
Maybe I ask you to come on your podcast a second time
Yeah.
and you say no. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
totally fine. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you didn't enjoy our conversation the first time. That's totally fine. People are allowed to have their own opinions.
Yeah.
And no one's going to say yes to everything that you ask for. It's like, you know, take it on the chin.
Yeah. And I also think a lot of the times HR is overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, they are.
And the business owner, if it's a small business like mine, is overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And some people hit you up for the podcast. Some people hit you up for work. And then you're like, yes, just hit me up again next week. It's not a
Absolutely.
rejection. It's a, I will not remember next
Yeah,
week. And I
yeah.
forget. And then you're shuffling things and then you're going through your, line or Instagram or whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, shoot, this guy was looking for work and I need a worker.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with following up, nothing wrong with being rejected, nothing wrong with asking for things, and maybe they say yes, maybe they say no. Just, you know, self-promotion doesn't need to be buhawisa. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
be arrogant.
Yeah.
You can get away with it if you just do it tactfully.
Because I think that maybe not just in Taiwan, but you know, I've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Sales always has a bit of a like an element of sleaziness, right?
Mhm.
So people will feel, I don't want to be that sleazy salesman.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
actually, when it comes to, you know, you're selling yourself, your skills,
Yeah.
you just gotta do it.
I mean, in
Yeah.
my opinion,
Yeah.
there's a guy in Taiwan, Joe, Moosehead Joe, you
Yeah,
know.
I know him. Yeah.
So Moosehead Joe is a really good example of this because he's kind of friends with everyone.
Yep.
He's very likable. He's very good at speaking with different people.
Yep.
He's a really interesting, nice guy.
Yeah.
And I'll see him in bars around,
Yeah.
and for him, that's sales.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, because he is in a bar drinking with a client,
Yeah.
right? But it never feels like sales
Yeah. Yeah.
because
exactly.
everyone likes him, and he's just having a chat and a beer.
Great guy. Yeah. Yeah.
So what he has done is turned what is previously could be seen as a sleazy salesy, oh hey, buy some more crates of, and he's turned it into a very, you know, friendly relationship, great to see you again
Yeah.
type of business. And he's been very successful because of that. I mean,
I think to add on to that, sometimes I will get, there's two kinds of salesmen I'll get. Something like you know, you said Joe O'Brien. They'll come in, they'll eat, they'll have a beer. A lot of like a Jim and Dad sort of. They'll come
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
they'll bring the family, they'll drink. You know, the family will be like, "Oh, business is so good," and I'll be like, "Oh, that's because I'm selling your beer." You know,
Right.
And then it's just kind of like this. It's just that's how it works.
And it's mutual
It's
respect.
mutual,
I
right?
like you and
Yeah.
you like me, and we're working together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes I will get younger Taiwanese sales that will come in with, you know, alcohol and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, cool, you know, come in and you know, sometimes I forget that I made the appointment, but if they come in and be like, hey, we had an appointment, I will drop everything and I
Yeah.
will sit with them for 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's sit down and crack open the drinks. And the first thing they'll say to me is like, I don't drink.
Oh, the
And
Taiwanese person
yeah,
doesn't drink.
they'll tell me, they'll be like, oh, I don't drink. And I'm like, okay, so you want to sit here and watch me drink, which is a weird vibe.
It is a weird
It's
vibe.
weird.
It doesn't feel comfortable.
I don't mind if you don't drink, but it's also it's strange. It's a strange
Yeah,
thing,
it's not a
right?
good idea.
And then, yeah, you know, you'll sit there and they'll just be spouting off like facts, and I'm like, just
Yeah, just
tell me
chill-
about
chill-
yourself, man.
Chill out, mate.
Relax.
Yeah.
I'll have a drink. I'll be like, I like this one. It's got a bit of a little lemony, blah blah blah. I like it. So you know, sometimes I'll order, sometimes I won't. But
Yeah.
But if they, you know, if people come in and they're like, hey, they open all these drinks and they're like, I don't drink,
Yeah.
so these are all for you to
Yeah.
drink. It's weird.
I know. So
It's
I
weird.
have a version of
Yeah.
that as well, where
Yeah.
you'll meet with a candidate, and they will have a presentation
Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah.
And what they want to do is they want to open their laptop and talk at you for
Yes.
15 minutes.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm not enjoying myself. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear a 15-minute monologue about your life and career. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like, have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
Have a dialogue. Ask me some questions. I ask you some questions. We have a chat.
Yeah.
I'm much happier that way. I
Yeah.
do not want to hear a 15-minute monologue about your career.
It's like they've prepared this like Shark Tank pitch.
Yeah.
Where you can't ask questions, you can't talk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
I
It's just like,
switch off really fast.
Well, me too. Me too. Yeah. And I know your Mandarin is good. Mine is decent as well.
Yeah.
But if it goes really long, my brain shuts off. It's just like
Same.
it's kind of like Homer Simpson. It starts
Totally
it's
same.
like do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking about whatever, you know, like
I
things
find
I
that
got to do. Yeah.
at Chinese New Year with
Yeah.
my wife's family,
yeah.
and there'll be 10 of us around the table.
Yeah.
And I'm good for like an hour.
Yeah, after a while, your brain just and then
And,
sometimes the things that they're talking about, it's just like, you know, kind of petty. This guy, that guy, and every culture has that.
Yeah, of
But I'm like,
course.
I don't care. I'm gonna watch a movie with my kid or go for a walk or
Yeah,
I
go
really-
play on my phone.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
anything, right? So I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm on my
yeah.
break, man. So next topic, man. Tell me about your investing.
Yeah.
Tell me about investing. That's cool.
So I've got equity investments in a couple of companies. One
Nice.
is CreatorDB, which I invested in a couple of years ago, and another company is called Ness Wellness. So CreatorDB, they do KOL influencer marketing. So they
Okay.
have their own database and software, and they're kind of a data software company that take Western brands and help them find marketing influencers
Uh-huh.
in Asia to cooperate with. And there's a lot of data involved in that process. So there's
Okay.
a lot of return on investment spend and stuff.
Okay.
And they are really doing very, very well.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're
That's great.
absolutely killing it. I met the founder when he was 24, I think, Clayton, and I was just instantly impressed.
Oh, the guy you just mentioned, right? Okay.
Instantly
Okay.
impressed. I mean, he was 24 at the time, and he had started the company at 22, and he's 26 now. I went to his birthday recently. It was his 26-year-old birthday. They rented out the entirety of Babylon open bar.
Oh, wow.
And there was a ton of, YouTube influencers and venture capital guys there, but everyone was really nice. The vibe was amazing.
Okay.
So hats off to those guys. They're doing incredibly well.
Fantastic.
And then I invested in another company called Nest Wellness. So Nest Wellness,
That sounds familiar. I've seen you post about that.
Angela and Melody founders.
Okay. Yeah.
So the really important thing, the reason I invested in Nest Wellness is because I think the Taiwanese are quite bad at work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that they do not spend enough attention on mental, physical health.
100%.
And so Nest Wellness are trying to fill that hole. So basically, they're a company that offer corporate wellness training, which is mental, physical health. So that's to do with exercise and spirituality a little bit, meditation, stress management.
Okay.
All of these various topics. There's a lot of yoga teachers that work with us, a lot of specialists teachers.
I'm super curious. How would like a big company react to a pitch from something like a Nest Wellness?
So
'Cause
there's
traditionally they'll be like, "What the hell? This is a waste of money."
right. So it's not that they think it's a waste of money. They're
Okay.
just not used to spending money on
Okay.
this.
Gotcha.
So it can be a difficult pitch in that sense.
Okay.
The good thing about Nest Wellness is that a lot of very big companies have a lot of money and they have high turnover.
Okay.
So actually their employees are quite unhappy. They're very
Yeah.
stressed. They quit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a very obvious problem that we can point to.
Okay.
So Nest Wellness can come in and say, look, we'll come in and we'll do 10 classes with as many people as you want. And we will offer tips on meditation and stress management and
Okay.
workload management and communication tips, and also physical well-being, like how do you watch your nutrition, like how often should you exercise, and how do
Yeah.
you start that kind of program, or how do you quit smoking, even stuff like that, smoking cessation, like all of these things can be massive benefits to an employee's mental and physical health,
Yeah.
which will in turn benefit the company. So again, it's a little bit hippie, a little bit futuristic, but
Okay.
for Taiwan, I mean, it's something that's done incredibly badly.
I agree, and I think that, not to be super controversial, but I think that starts with the school system,
Totally.
right? And it's like your kid needs to be in there 12 hours a day.
It's ridiculous.
And I'm like, mine's not.
It's ridiculous.
And people are like, what? But aren't you? Like, we went, like I said, this TV we replaced
yeah.
last week or something. And we went in and we know the sort of the LG guys there. There's a store down the street. And again, all of our stuff basically is LG because I know the guy.
Yeah.
That again,
Sure. Relationship
proof
driven.
again, right?
Totally.
And so is LG better than whatever else? I don't know. I like it and I like the guy, right? But this last time we went, they're like, "Oh, your daughter's going into junior high, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, what does she do?" And I'm like, "Oh, she likes to do
Yeah.
jujitsu." And then he starts kind of laughing, and I'm like, what's funny?" And they're like, "Oh, you want her to go to the UFC?" I'm like, "No, but I don't want her to be taken advantage of when she's older by a dude."
Or I want her to have some kind of physical exercise. Like,
and she's got her exercise, she's got her confidence, and she's able to take care of herself if I'm not there.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
If she needs to choke a dude out, if dad's not around, then go do it,
And also
Yeah.
the idea that a kid's life should be education up here and then everything else down here, not important, is just ridiculous. I mean, compared to people in the West, that is just not how we operate.
Yeah.
You have your classes, and then you have your after-school sports, and then you have your friends, and then you have your fun.
Yeah.
And those things are all quite important.
Very
it's not
important.
like one is up here and the others are down here.
I believe that that impacts the social skills of people a lot.
Totally does.
And so my daughter's going to junior high, and everyone's like, "Well, what is she going to do, after junior high?" I'm like, "Hang out,
Yeah.
be a kid, enjoy her life."
Yeah.
She'll do her jujitsu, and like this morning we got up and I took her to the park and we did some some calisthenic stuff in the park and whatever, and then she played on the swings. I'm like, she's a kid.
Listen,
She's a kid.
listen. We're on the same team here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
my kid is 4, but there is no way I'm putting him in school for 14 hours.
It's crazy.
There's absolutely no way. I will fight a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, if a teacher tells me that, oh, you shouldn't have, oh, he needs it. No,
you don't.
no.
Yeah.
I don't respect your opinion, and don't
Yeah.
tell me I need my kid in school
Yeah.
for 12 hours a day to the point where they're exhausted beyond, they completely lose any energy.
And then they're not happy.
No.
Then they're miserable. I've seen so many kids be miserable, and I'm like, you're a kid, dude.
Yeah, I
Enjoy
mean,
that.
my wife is a very smart person who
Yeah.
burned out hard in high school.
I can imagine. Yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
She went to quite a bad university because of it, because her natural instinct was, I don't want any of this. I don't want to study in high school for 14, 15 hours a day,
Nobody
sleep,
does.
and then, I mean, it's ridiculous. And Anthony Van Dyke's a friend of mine. He put this quite well. He said it feels like the later parts of the education system in Taiwan are designed to pick out the top 20%,
Okay.
top 15 to 20%,
Yeah.
and everyone else is just,
Yeah.
they're not important.
And I think that makes sense. But to be honest, like, let's say the top 20%, are those guys really going off and changing the world?
Yeah.
They're not. They're working
not.
for somebody else who does. Do you know what I mean? It seems like, right?
I mean, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as if, acing, your high school or whatever. It's like, that's it. You're guaranteed, a good life. It's
No,
crazy.
You're absolutely
Crazy,
right.
yeah.
I mean, for example, if you teach memory rote learning, which a lot of Taiwanese education systems do,
yeah.
then what you end up with is
and
somebody
out.
who's good at memory learning.
Yeah.
And important skills like, critical thinking, debate, art, kind of the kind of more artistic-y side of things. If you completely lose focus on them,
Yeah.
you end up with a person who's not very well-rounded, and when problems approach them, they can't think of creative solutions to those problems.
And again, I hate to push on the social part, but I really think that it's important. I mean, I went in, like, I've been keeping my hair short lately, so I go to this Ibai Kwai place just down the street, and I'll go in there. I got the 100 NT place, and basically, there was a guy right in front of me, a Taiwanese guy. It was like, I would say, university guy.
Yeah.
And he went and got his young hair, and I could see, like, I like to observe. People like to watch the phones, but I like to kind of observe people, right? And I could tell he really liked the girl who was cutting his hair.
Right.
Right. And he's kind of like, he's preparing to say a line, right? And then, at the end, he's kind of like, oh, I sat down and she's getting ready. And he's still standing there. And I'm kind of like, shoot your shot, man.
Go for it,
Shoot your
mate.
shot, man. Do what you got to do.
I was playing pool.
Yeah.
Maybe it was probably about 8 months ago. So I was playing pool with a friend of mine, and there was a table next to us with two younger Taiwanese guys. They were probably 16, 17, and they were playing pool together for a couple of hours, and they're good pool players, and they were both playing with headphones in, so they weren't chatting.
Okay. Wow.
And it hurt me to my core. It's like,
That's the best part.
it's like you guys are completely missing the point. The point is not the pool. The point is the relationship. Have a bit of banter. Say good shot.
Yeah.
Talk about the thing that's bothering you. Tell your friend that you fancy the girl. Like the point is the
You
relationship.
can even talk shit about your shot. Be like,
Totally. Have a bit of banter, have a bit of competition. The fact that you guys are playing and you're listening to music or a podcast and
crazy.
completely ignoring the relationship.
It's crazy.
If you guys are hanging out after school together in the pool parlor, you have the potential to be lifelong friends.
Exactly.
And what you're doing is you're messing up that relationship. You're completely missing the point.
Yeah.
And it really upset me, actually. I didn't like it at all.
It shouldn't affect you like that, but it does.
I didn't like it at all.
It does, yeah.
It really hurt me in a way where
you feel sad for these
it's
people.
one of
For
these
this guy who's like,
it's one of these like, oh, I'm afraid of the future generation kind of things that I saw.
So to finish off that story, the guy's standing there and the girl's kind of getting me ready, and he says, 你剪头发真的不错. And he's like you cut hair really not bad, And then the girl she stops and she just looks at him like, and then she just starts cutting my hair. Like, it's like, Say,
Nice
dude,
one.
I love my hair. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. You're gorgeous. Say whatever. Say something. They'll be like, you cut hair really,
So
really not bad.
how did he work on that line? Maybe 30 minutes?
Probably he was sitting there
Oh my
preparing,
God.
and then he left. And then, I mean, the girl kind of like, when he went out the door, she kind of smirked and just was like,
Idiot kid.
yeah. And I'm just like, you know,
I know. I mean,
yeah.
it's really, I mean, I'm a very, very confident person, and even for me, hitting on girls is tough.
Yeah,
It's
for
like,
sure. For sure. Everybody,
it
for
is
sure.
not easy, and
Yeah.
it's something that kind of eats you up inside, and rejection can
Yeah,
hurt.
it does,
Like,
it
can
does.
really hurt. I remember at one point, I went over to speak to a girl years and years ago.
Yeah,
Went
yeah.
over to speak to a girl, and she looked at me disgusted, like, and it still hurts. It still hurts. to
That this,
this day.
we all
And
get
I
that.
just
bro,
turned
yeah.
around and walked away. But yeah,
Well, we've all got that the eyes of, you know, the disgusting look, like, ew, what are you? It's crazy, but I don't know. It's just life, man.
That's
but I just
life.
feel, again, I hate to go back to the communication and the social. It's so important. You know, like, for example, my daughter, I would say she's at a 60 or 70% wise in school. She's not hitting that top 20%. But like all the kids like her, and their social skills, I would say that by far head and shoulders
Yeah.
above everybody else.
Yeah.
And her confidence is through the roof, to the point where, like, in grade 4, she saw like bullies in grade 6 bullying somebody else. And she's like, I'm going to go do something. And I'm
wow.
like, a grade 6 boy is twice your size. So you can tell the teacher, or you
Wow.
can maybe just be
Wow.
careful. I mean, your jujitsu is good, but that's a double your size
That's
guy, you
crazy.
know? She's like, I'm going to say something.
I respect it though. I mean,
Yeah.
I like those people.
Yeah.
I mean, it
So I
sounds
told
like
her, do it, but just you know, relax.
yeah,
you know,
it sounds like if your daughter carries on the same kind of on the same line, that
Yeah.
she'll have a much nicer life than most smart kids will.
I agree. I think so, and that's kind of my plan. And again, one more funny thing about, not funny thing,
Yeah.
about the Taiwanese school. They're like, you know, your kid, she has a Canadian passport, Canadian ID. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, why don't you just send her to Canada? And I'm like, at 12 years old? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm thinking, like, this is crazy, because I want my
Yeah,
kid,
Yeah.
because I want to raise my kid, because I want to have her with me,
Yeah.
because I want to experience her life. I want to take care of her. I don't want to just send her somewhere so she gets straight A's, and who the hell knows what happens at that school.
Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
true.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, man. But it's really common here. It's common here to just
Well,
send
do you
them
know?
away.
Do you know what happens is they'll, let's say if it's a daughter, they'll send a daughter to boarding school in
Yeah.
the U.S.
Yeah.
for a few years, 4 years, and then the daughter comes back to Taiwan, and they expect her to not have changed culturally. So they expect her to be a Henguai Taiwan Yusheng, you know, Gongzhou.
Yeah.
And actually what she is now is interested in foreign guys.
Yeah.
She has partied a bit.
She's partied.
Her opinions and her culture is now very American. It's not Taiwanese anymore. And they're like, what happened? You're so
different.
You
Yeah.
know, you're so controversial now. It's like, well, what did you expect to happen?
And I think junior high through high school, that's a pretty, like, it's a pretty important time in your life. That's when you learn
Yeah.
the music you like. Like, I still listen to some music from high school.
Me too.
You know, that's when you learn about music. That's when you learn about everything. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. But
Cool.
yeah, I don't know, brother. So balancing roles as a writer, teacher,
Yeah.
investor, it sounds challenging, man. How do you keep your head on straight?
I don't know if I do. I mean, I don't know if I balance
don't. I just need
properly. You
tips.
just
Yeah.
constantly juggling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, mate. I mean, the thing that I make the most money from is headhunting. So
Okay.
it's very important to me that I maintain focus on
Sure.
on recruitment, which
Gotcha.
means sending CVs out the door, doing BD to get new clients, and
Mhm.
working on the jobs that I've been given. If I slack in the other things, I don't feel bad. But if
Okay.
I slack in headhunting, I definitely start to panic.
Okay.
So I feel like as long as I have my 80% of my time focused on headhunting
Okay.
and I'm working hard,
Yeah.
the side hustles I can do whatever I want.
Okay.
They can come and go as they please. The side hustles I use because I'm fairly ADHD, and so I hate routine, I hate boredom. I'm
Okay.
constantly looking for
Mix
new
it up.
things. Yeah. And if I didn't do that, I would burn out from headhunting. So the side hustles are what keep me kind of fresh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful, man. I want to talk about one more topic here.
Okay.
The Taipei Entrepreneurs Hub. I
Yeah.
saw that you posted recently in the last few days, I believe.
Yeah,
you
that's
posted
right.
about the government. You know, that's always a hot topic, right?
I mean, it's
Tell me
so
about that.
cool. So I was cold approached by the Taiwan Entrepreneur Hub, and they said, "We've been really inspired by the content that you write about Taiwan. We want you to appear in a promotional video that will feature the mayor and 2 other foreign entrepreneurs. We're going to come in on Monday and film you. It would be a real honor if you would participate." It's
Wonderful.
like, oh my
Of
God.
course.
Like, what a privilege.
Yeah.
I mean, even that's the kind of message. I copy pasted it to my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad they don't get impressed very easily. And
Okay.
my mom and dad were like, wow,
Wow.
that's really impressive. That's so nice. What a nice message. And the other thing that I think is that, you know, in Taiwan, a really hot topic at the moment is naturalization. So
Yes.
foreigners like us who want to become Taiwanese, get our ID card, quite often, unless you can prove that you're a special foreigner, you
Yeah.
have to give up your other passport. And I do not want to do that. I have a
Yeah.
UK passport, so I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking to do is provide enough evidence to the Ministry of Labor that I am contributing to Taiwanese society and I'm an important person, and being asked to do this kind of video is direct
That's
evidence.
perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
So I'm really happy about that. I'm going to put together a presentation for the government to get a kind of a letter of admission.
That's beautiful. And I think there's a lot of people kind of fighting for that because,
There is.
again, I understand both sides. Like, obviously, as a foreigner, I've been here for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I have my wife is from here and I have a business here and I pay taxes here and I speak the language. So there should be a route,
Yeah.
I think.
I think there should. Of course there should.
I understand that people, it's a small island and they don't want people to come in here for 2 years and then take advantage of the healthcare and all that. I understand all of that
Yeah.
stuff, but there just got to be. I mean,
There
make
has
it
to be a
hard.
compromise.
Make
That's
it
it.
hard.
Totally
but
agree.
Make it difficult. Be here for 15 years or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's got to be something.
I mean, we
Yeah.
both have mixed race children,
Exactly.
and a lot of my friends have mixed race children.
Yeah.
It is wrong that they should grow up as Waiguoren. I
Yeah.
mean, that is just insulting. It's incredibly racist and insulting.
Yeah.
The fact that,
Born
because your father or your mother is from a foreign country, but you were born here,
and
your
raised.
one of your parents is Taiwanese, and you speak native level Mandarin,
Yeah.
that you're still a foreigner. I mean,
Yeah.
that is just awful, and I really hope that is something that changes in the Taiwanese culture.
I think so. For me, when you come here and you're the Uyghur and whatever, you get so used to it, right?
Yeah.
But then, the cool thing is we're in Tianmu, so there's so many foreigners here, so that doesn't really
I
happen.
know.
But every time, we go out into a smaller area and people when my daughter was like 5, I think we went down south and we were out somewhere and everybody was just like, oh, Uyghur. And my daughter was like, she didn't even know the word.
Yeah.
Right. She's like,
Yeah.
that's not a Uyghur. That's just my dad,
Yeah. I
So it's
know.
kind of crazy. It's
Well, I
kinda
mean, my
crazy,
kid is almost 4, so he's
Yeah.
3, and I've seen him in play parks being called Waiguoren and him
Yeah.
saying, "Well, 不是外国人啊，
Yeah.
我妈妈是台湾人
Yeah,
啊，我
yeah.
是在这边."
Yeah.
So he's already started that
Okay,
battle.
okay.
So it's like,
It's
we'll
kinda
see.
crazy.
We'll
This-
see.
It's kind of it's a tough one, but we'll see how that goes. I'm excited. That's cool that they got to that they chose you.
I know.
So you can kind of carry the foreign community on your back on that one. Yeah. The Entrepreneurs Hub.
Just
That's
seek
cool.
a bit more attention.
Yeah.
Just
Come
more
on, just
attention.
carry us on your back. Carry us on your back, man. Brother, man, we've already done over an hour here.
Wow.
So why don't you let me know if you've got anything else that we didn't hit on? What you want to add on to this?
No, I'm good. I'm very happy. I love Taiwan. Thank you for being so hospitable and
Yeah.
great to catch up, man.
Yeah,
Really
brother.
nice.
We'll do
Really
it
nice.
again. Do a
Yeah.
couple. We won't wait a few years. We'll do it do a few months or something from now.
Sure, man.
Something's
Whatever,
going on. Just
whatever.
let me know.
If you ever have a gap, let me know.
And definitely let's do some gigs
love
here.
to.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah, I'd love
fantastic.
to.
Right on. Beautiful. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you everybody for watching Eddie's show. We feel only happiness, don't feel any sorrow. Welcome everybody to watch more on his content. Eddie Live Podcast. Eddie Live Podcast.